Shalom, good evening from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited, established in the United States of God of Israel, bless America, in 1981 in New York State. Welcome to our monthly seminar, which is so needed at this time. Ancient Roots Mothering, Roots, Nettles, and Sage. And the Madam co-chairs of the seminar in alphabetical order are Mrs. J. Rivkah Asoulin of the Lower Galilee in the land of Israel, Mrs. Chava Dagan of the Northern Negev in the land of Israel, and Mrs. Gilla Weiss in Florida in the United States. So before we begin, this is... did I say the date? Today is, did I say this? Did I say today is Wednesday? No, I don't think. Wednesday, November 15, 2023 in the Gregorian calendar. And it is, because it's nightfall, the third day of the 9th Israelite Hebrew month in the Hebrew Israelite year 5784. In a few weeks, we have Hanukkah. Hopefully, we'll have some wonderful miracles to celebrate. Now, let me do my rainmaking bit before we... Please support my work to build our Hebrew Bible-based broadcasting network from Jerusalem, Israel, to honor the God-land, Torah, and people of Israel and all humanity. Please click on the link below. And please support the work of Rivkah, Chava, and Gilla. There are many ways you can do that. Click on the link below. And I want to make a relatively short comment before we begin that I'd like Rivkah and Gilla and Chava to address, because they deal with trauma therapy in the best of times, which is what happens when we're faced with events that are so horrific, we want to pretend to ourselves they didn't happen. I'll give you an example. My own grandfather, Benjamin Lang, was in the Austro-Hungarian army in World War I. He was from Galicia, came with my grandmother in 1920 to America. 1939, he's in the Pelham Parkway in New York, and there's a Jew who got out of Nazi-occupied Poland, got to America, and is sitting in the living room saying what the Germans were doing. Now, my Jewish grandfather said, I didn't believe it. He said, quote unquote, my grandfather wasn't a big talker like me. He said, we didn't imagine the Germans could be so cruel. I remembered them from 20 years ago, the Austro-Hungarian army, the German army. They had a kashrut department, clergymen, rabbis. We were very well behaved. We were. All these terrible, and it turns out a lot of the atrocity stories the British cranked out about the Germans in World War I weren't true. And in World War II, Goebbels uses to say, yeah, you see, you lied about us then, you're lying about us now. Unfortunately, except in World War II, they were true. So here's my grandfather, who was a socialist, a Zionist. I mean, he didn't have a fancy education, but socialism, whatever that means, protect the working man. He was a working man. He was a pattern maker. When he heard what the guy was reporting, who had just come from Poland, he said, I can't believe it. I can't believe the people I knew would do that. It's only their kids 20 years later. We have a similar situation now. Will it happen in October 7th? There were well-meaning people of whatever ethnic or religious background to say it can't be. That's not real. It didn't happen, which can be made worse if any of the sides tell stories that aren't true. And that can happen because when you tell stories that aren't true, then people say, well, everything isn't true. So this is a big problem. And I want to add two more points before I go historically, where people did this. In March 1956, the Soviet Party Congress in Moscow, a month before I was born, Nikita Khrushchev, for whatever reason, decided he was going to talk about some of Stalin's crimes. This caused an uproar in the communist world. There were very decent, well-meaning, sincere people who believed in communism who committed suicide. Their world was destroyed. The Jewish communists called Stalin the son of all the nations. He was their Mashiach. It's impossible. It must be an anti-Stalin conspiracy theory. And even in the late 1990s, after the fall of the Soviet Union, An old Jewish communist was asked, he was nearing 100, said, with what you know now, it's now 50, 60, 70 years later. What do you think of Stalin's crimes? He answered very honestly. He said, you know what? It may be true that Stalin did those things, but I can't believe that, because if I believe that, my world will fall apart. Never mind, he's going to drop dead the next day anyway, go home to God. He couldn't handle it. And cognitive dissonance, it can't be, therefore it isn't. And what do you tell old Jewish communists? My world will fall apart. I can't deal with this. Another story was Lillian Hellman was a Jewish communist, a Stalinist in the 1950s in Hollywood. And she knew that it was true. She just lied to cover up for Stalin. I don't know, maybe he was her virtual lover, her Frank Sinatra, poster boy. And another story, and then I want to hand it to you, which is in terms of good therapy. Make believe, and it's easy for me to say being on the autistic spectrum because I see this all the time with neurotypicals. I tell them pretending, lying, and make believe is not going to help you. Maybe in the short run, maybe in an emergency, but in the long run, it doesn't help. Hannah Arendt was a girlfriend of Martin Heidegger. That was before Hitler came to power. She was 20. He was the professor. College girl falls in love with the professor. It's a story that's lots of movies and books written about it. The student prints, all this sort of stuff. After the war, he was a big Nazi. He didn't even pretend to repent. He said, yeah, I got all the Jewish academics out, and I'm proud of it. The great Jewish intellectual Hannah Arendt covered up for him. After the war, you say love is blind. So one of the things I want to ask the ladies to address is in terms of therapy. What happens when we either hear of or experience something that's so horrific, the brain says it didn't happen? How do you deal with that? And when is a person ready to confront something? And one other thing. In The Man of La Mancha, the musical, I saw it on Broadway and I saw it in the film. The niece of Don Quixote is very embarrassed by her uncle because he's crazy. And she has a fiance who's very rational, he's a scientist, and says, this is affecting my relationship with my fiance. She goes to the priest and says, please help me. My uncle's bad for my public relations. The priest is a very kind man. And he sings a song. I won't try to sing it, but I'll tell you the words very short. Because she says, my uncle thinks this kitchen slut, Aldonza, the local whore in the inn, is Dulcinea, the great lady, the Duchess. So the priest is very kind and says, you want to convince your uncle he's wrong? Sometimes the cure is worse than disease. So this is what he says. This is great screenwriting. It says, to each his Dulcinea, though she's only flame and air. And yet how lovely life could seem if every man could weave a dream to keep him from despair. But if you build your life on dreams, it's prudent to recall a man with moonlight in his hands has nothing there at all. And that's why Arthur Koestler, I'm not a fan of who wrote The God That Failed, and other ex-communists, and they realized what was going on and said, I can't cognitive dissonance. I can't say what happened on October 7th didn't happen, and that's all Zionist or Jew propaganda. Or if I'm a German, I can't say there were no camps and there was no gas. That was just for disinfection. I can't do that anymore. So I want you ladies to talk about extreme horror, how to help people deal with that. Either the people who experienced it or the people who know about it. Like my grandfather who said, I didn't believe it. The Germans couldn't be so cruel. Lady, it's all yours. I'm going up to the gallery.
Thank you so much. Well, we'll do our best to try and weave this in. Welcome, everybody. Today, we actually do have planned to speak about 7 steps to cultivate calm right now, right this moment. And we, of course, are cultivating calm because we are still in wartime in Israel. However, before we jump into this, I too would like to address a separate issue, and I just want to say that I hope that at least my work in tonight's show will be in the merit of the complete refuah shlema of my son, who has just gone through double eye surgery and hopefully is on the meds and will have a complete healing. And I miss him, and I'm sending him a lot of love while we are in separate places right now. But he is with his father, and hopefully we'll get to talk about fathering and the importance of parents. But when we talk about things that are very challenging, eye surgery, and especially double eye surgery, is also very challenging and very frightening. And these are all different types of traumas, as little Aria mentioned before, that hopefully our 7 steps to cultivate calm right now can help with. And my son and I are implementing these when we talk all the time, and my husband is by his side, assisting him in implementing some of these steps right now. So first up is exercise. So, you know, things are wild. The world's upside down still, as if the past 4 years weren't enough. The past, what are we in, a month and a half plus? And in Israel, just is like the cherry on top of insanity. But exercise for me has been a great help. And I'll just say a little bit and then open it up to the ladies. I've got this routine. It's less than 15 minutes long of yoga. And I do it every single day. And I do it when I'm late for things. And I did it when I took a big fall recently and hurt my wrist and hurt the whole left side of my body. I did it anyway with modifications. But it's a time to, you know, you can't help but breathe, especially if your exercise helps you to work up a sweat. You've got to breathe. And so anything else that's happening in your mind, in your head, in your space, or any of the people you're caring for, or the people who are getting you riled up, or anything else that's happening, they can't be involved in your exercise. When you're exercising, you have to just support your body to do certain movements with breath, with physicality. And that's something that's completely based on you, what's happening inside, and not anyone else's craziness around you. And so even in the midst of craziness, even if my kids are jumping around, even if the phone's ringing off the hook, I can still take my yoga mat, do this less than 15-minute routine. And, you know, and when you do things as a routine, there's all this muscle memory as well. So sometimes you can just kind of on autopilot go through these different movements, and while you're breathing and supporting yourself, kind of let your mind go to wherever it needs to go, to states of relaxation or states of calmness. You know, of course, in the beginning, you might be counting your 30 reps or whatever. But as you go on autopilot, you don't necessarily need to count so much anymore, and you can find what feels right and how long in each pose. You can really just free your mind, even in the and be the calm in the eye of the storm. So Gilla and Chava, maybe you want to talk about your exercise routines.
Go ahead, Gilla.
So I have a little different routine. I love yoga. I love calm breathing, meditation, all of the above. However, I find when it gets really stressful, especially if you have kids at home and you cannot find, sometimes it's hard to carve out that little 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You should still, but sometimes, especially with the kids, and during this time, a lot of kids have trauma. A lot of kids, even if they don't, are picking up on what we're going through. And so one of the things that I have done for years and still do is I will find music that my family loves or we love, and we will put it on really loud, and we have a dance party. That can last for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, as long as you and your kids love it, till you're so tired, you just drop on the sofa. And everyone within a few minutes will be laughing, smiling, and just like dropping all the tension. It all goes, and you storm your body with these endorphins, and it's such a feel-good thing, and you get exercise, and that helps to last the day. So that's one super easy thing that anyone and everyone can do. And, people say, well, I don't know how to dance. You're at home. You can be in your PJs. You're with your kids or by yourself. Go for it. Just do it. It's the best. The other thing that I do is I have a little rebounder. If you have a trampoline, amazing. Go the whole family, jump, have fun. But I have a little rebounder. And sometimes I will go on for literally 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And some of my kids will do it as well. Doing that is similar, but not the same as dancing. You can put music on and jump to music as well. But the rebounding actually helps to get the lymphatics flowing. And that is so helpful because when we're stressed, when we're in trauma, when we're anxious, our lymphatics tend to be stagnant because we tend to be stagnant and we're holding in. So when you're jumping on a rebounder, you're helping the flow of the lymphatic river inside your body, which can help you to stay healthy when you're stressed and not to get sick. Chava?
Awesome. So we live on a farm and I don't really have time for extra, although I would love to. I used to in my younger years do yoga and dancing, all these things I so love, but we have to get up early and I shovel manure. That's my exercise. And it's not just me, it's the children and it's our routine. We go out and we have to take care of our animals, which is a huge thing for us, by the way. Caring for these animals, knowing that no matter how many bombs, sirens, whatever it is, these animals depend on us. So we don't miss a day, and rain or shine, whatever's coming down from the sky, we go out there and we feed them and we shovel manure. We are cleaning out all of their stalls, lots and lots of animals. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs a farm and you need to go do this, but I'm saying that your chores can be incorporated into your exercise routine, whatever that might be. It's easy to look at exercises separate from my daily routine, and it doesn't have to be. If you are cleaning out your cabinets or closets or whatever, reaching up and your body can bend, it can move, it can stretch, and you can get pretty tired cleaning toilets or bathtubs or whatever it happens to be. And I do love that we are outside, and that I'm showing my kids in the middle of all this craziness, just trust in God. We are doing what we're supposed to be doing. Not to freak out, not to be scared of being outside, not to be scared of the weather. This is fresh air and it's making us happy. It's making us healthy. We are communicating with the animals. We're petting them. And so it doesn't sound like exercise to a normal person, but we go out there with our jackets in the morning. It's all cold. We're stripping off layers in 5 minutes because we get so active. So that's a big one for us. However it is that you can incorporate chores or daily routine. Another thing that's become very big for me, which is not a planned thing, we're practically the only people in our moshav and have been for the last month and a half. Everyone left, everyone. So there aren't other children here, which is really sad. If you think of the future of the moshav, I don't even know where. Anyway, we won't go there. So who are the kids going to play with? It's got to be me. So we go out and we play football. We play baseball. We ride bikes. We jump around. We play soccer. Whatever it is that they want to do, I'm right there with them because they have to feel like they're not forgotten. They're not left behind. They can no longer do their old things that they used to do. I don't want them to ever feel that. So we go out there and we have a very good time. We strike out every time. We roll in the dirt. And, it's just good old fashioned fun without them having to feel that stress all the time. Let's just go out and play some sports, even if it's just the four of us.
For someone who doesn't have time to exercise, that sounds like a lot of exercise. And that's a good segue into number 2, our second tip: keep routine. Keep routine. So maybe Chava can just continue with the thought, and then we'll jump in, since she's started touching on it, about how important that is.
So that has been very, very important for us. If I disrupted everything from then until now, the stress is just loaded on top of the reality. And it's so important for me for them to see, for the kids to see, for my own sanity, that things didn't stop. Things still need to be done. Like I said, we have animals outside, and they need caring, they need cleaning up, they need feeding, they need watering, and everything else along the way in our property that still needs caring, even plants, all of my herbs and stuff. I stopped watering them, right? Because so caring for all of this other stuff and continuing with our routine has really, really helped just get us out of that cycle of, you could call it trauma or shock. And it just gets your body, like Rivkah said, into the muscle memory and the brain memory of what you need to do, and just continue. Because if you stop, there's going to be a lot more bad things that could happen along the way, God forbid. So that's helped me so much, is this continuing with the routine, including homeschooling, including working, including learning, so we just keep going. And then there's no time for you to just sit and wallow in your fear or your stress or your anxiety.
Taking children out of their normal routine has repercussions, extreme repercussions. And maybe Chava will share a story that she shared with us about somebody that she knows who, removed her children from their home, and the repercussions of that. But, a very important thing we know from research, that say in older people, in older, parents, and our elders, basically, when they for some reason need to move, they go to like a home or an assisted living facility or something like that, their mental health deteriorates and their physical health very, very quickly. And a lot of it is that change in routine. So for older people who may be, they're doing a lot on muscle memory as well, kind of remembering things when other things are not maybe working as they once did in their minds. They can still navigate and care for themselves in their own home that they've lived in for 50 years or something like that. And when you take them out of that home and suddenly everything's new, it's very like jarring and kind of shocking. It's traumatic for the elderly to have to map out a new place, and things aren't where they remember. I mean, I accidentally, my son's job is to empty the dishwasher, which he's not doing because of his surgery. And so we're all covering all his chores and all these things. And so I put the spoons in the wrong place where the fork should be. And I didn't even realize it because we were out of silverware, and I put things away. But after the first few times where I go in and my hand automatically goes to grab a fork and a spoon comes out, I'm getting really annoyed. Like, what's going on here? And then I realize it's me. I put the forks in the spoon place and whatever. Simple things like that, can really throw you off and create agitation and confusion, even for someone who has all their mental faculties and everything's normal. And so just imagine what it's like for people who are involved in trauma, and their brain is like, certain parts are like firing up and other parts aren't. And then these small changes, even very small changes like spoons and forks, can really create so much more trauma and agitation and confusion. And so if we now take all these pieces I've kind of put together and look at what some people are doing, the instincts of some people during this time, during war, was to flee their homes or go to a government-funded hotel or something else. But what's happening, especially for the children, is they're being completely uprooted from everything that's familiar, all of their toys, their friends. Even if their friends are gone, the comfort of the same pictures on the walls or the books that they like on the bookshelf, all those things have suddenly just gone up in smoke. And on top of the trauma that's happening, it's almost adding insult to injury, or adding poison onto the dart that's already been shot at you. You know, right? If we're shooting a dart, it's going to hurt. It's bad enough that you had a dart shot at you. But if you put poison on the tip, that dart, which might have been, you know, a painful thing, an injury that we could heal, now you've got poison in your system. And it's become so much worse than it had to be. And that's kind of how I see changing the routine during times of trauma. Gilla?
So I agree also that routine is really important. And Rivkah touched on muscle memory as well. I do, however, I'm a very practical realist, and life happens. And sometimes, you know, routine is going to be a little different, and that's okay. We're not advocating for being rigid. You know, for example, Rivkah talked about the dishwasher. So I'm just going to have to share. In my house, everyone puts things in a different place. And it used to, I used to have a really hard time with that till I learned to let go. And I believe that it's helped all of us to have more brain elasticity, like, you know, they say plasticity of the brain. So we know that spoons will be either in one of three places, you know, and forks will be in one of two. So when it comes to routine, especially like I'm thinking of all the kids, I don't live in Israel, I live in the US, but all the kids who are not in school right now, you know, so you can recreate some routine and things that the kids love. So one of the things that we used to do during traumatic times, and even now when I have such high levels of stress, I have two sons who are serving, and it's so easy to get drawn down into that, is to recreate fun things and just normal things. We have to have dinner, right? We have to eat. We got to cook. Get them involved wherever you are. You know, something they love, let's make it. Just say they love pasta. Get everyone involved. For a treat, what do they love? They love cheese on their pasta. We got it. Another small thing is dinner. Let's make it a little different. Put a tablecloth or a blanket on the floor. Have picnic dinner. It's so much fun. And it's like letting your guard down a little from that point of view. And there might even be some fun conversation. So with a little bit of changes, you can still keep a rhythm. And I think that when we talk about routine, intentionally, it's keeping that rhythm going. So if the kids are not in school, recreate it at home. What an amazing opportunity to do homeschooling. Homeschooling is not schooling at home, but using the opportunity to be together, to learn through play. Watch a documentary, have fun, have popcorn while you watch that. So you keep a rhythm going and you add in little things there. Make sure to have hugs, make sure to make eye contact, make sure to acknowledge, you know, we're not trying to say, don't do that, but we're saying keeping some kind of family rhythm going there. And that can be helpful not only for kids and family members, but for us.
So true. Yeah. And I was just thinking about with my son's surgery right now, which he's doing outside of the country. And so we can't be with him. On the morning of his surgery, you know, that the kids and I, we prayed and we did all the things we needed to do to contribute to the positive outcomes. But during the actual time of the surgery, I wanted us to be doing something else, a fun activity. And so, because sitting there being concerned and whatever is completely unhealthy for everybody, and that's not really the energy we need to give to my son who's having the surgery, or my husband who's with him. So we decided to go out for a fun day in the hot springs in Tveria. We had never been there before, but it was such a treat. And we learned so many interesting things about the area, and, you know, we're out in nature, and we went for a little walk on the Kinneret, on the Sea of Galilee. And it was just so, once we got the word that he was out of the surgery and everything, we were in such calm, relaxed spirits that we could respond with calmness instead of tension and fear. So definitely shaking things up is possible. So when we say don't change routine, that isn't what we're talking about. What we're talking about is leaving all of everything that is familiar, or stopping things and just sitting and being like terrified or sad or worked up, all those coping mechanisms that we use in times of stress that aren't necessarily traumatic. We had a picnic lunch, for example, that day, and this sort of thing, but we did it together. And we did it in places that were familiar. I didn't go too far away from home. I went in the same areas that my kids have been to multiple times. It wasn't a totally new area that might cause some stress or confusion or something else. So yeah, keep that all in mind. We're not saying to be rigid, and have fun. So that will go to the next point, which is humor. Who'd like to talk about this first? Humor,
Chava?
fun.
That's something that we definitely have to work at in these really stressful times. It doesn't come naturally. But it's so important, and like Gilla was talking about, it just changes the mood for the rest of the day. So whether it's telling stories to each other or jokes, we watched a few episodes of some old 80s shows, or even before, I think from before the Beverly Hillbillies we were doing, I don't know, a couple of them, it was a while ago. And then we could just kind of repeat the funny lines over and over throughout the day or whatever. And it just keeps the mood light and fun. And then, having that in the back of our heads is anytime something might get a little tense or something came up, new, news or something that kind of puts everyone like, oh my God. So we go outside and, play with the cats or whatever. And they're always doing funny little things. And so you've got to keep that kind of going. And it's an effort. I will say it's an effort. It doesn't come that easily when everyone's a little on the sad side. But it is so important for the children, especially.
Yeah, there's an app that people have on their phones to know when sirens are coming in. And I, in general, don't like them. I don't use them. I think, you can hear a siren. You don't need multiple sirens. That's just more feeding into some sort of psyop or something. However, I did appreciate that on one of these apps, they allow you to choose your alarm when the siren comes on, and they have like very humorous alarms, like, like just funny cartoon silly noises, or incoming, or something like in a funny cartoon voice. For some people that might make all the difference. I mean, if you're the kind of person who wants to have that sort of thing on your phone and you can't part with it, you can certainly make it a little bit more humorous, or you can set it to Michael Jackson's Just Beat It or whatever you want, and, and moonwalk to your mamad. So those sorts of things. And then also identifying people around you who have punny humor. So like I have a couple of kids who love making puns. And when things are getting tense, I'm just like, I go right to that guy, what can you do with this, or to some of my sons, what do you find anything punny here? And they'll make a little pun, and it's like, either a full-on laugh or an eye roll or a chuckle or whatever it is. And then we can keep it up, just like Chava said, for the whole day. You can really keep those things going easily. Looking for opportunities to make a joke. Some people have an easier time with this than others, I know, but just knowing people well and being really emotionally connected to other people will help you be able to make jokes later on, and also to know what's sensitive or insensitive in the moment. But my one of my kids has a joke about something, that has to do with fire, and so when we went to the hot springs, of course I was able to reference this joke with fire and the water, and then the other kids got into it, and pretty soon everyone's laughing and making a joke and finding different ways to make a joke about it involving fire and this kid, and he was laughing and everyone was laughing. It was super fun, and everyone was just very relaxed. And at the end of that day, all the kids were like, this was the best day. We had such a great time. This was so much fun, and it really was simple on my part. I used my cacao card, my annual manui, to go to free parks, and picked a park close by. And it wasn't that it cost me nothing. I mean, except for my annual fees for the park. It doesn't have to cost anything. It doesn't have to take a lot of energy. You make some, sandwiches, throw some pitas or tortillas or whatever, get a laffa and some herbs and cheese or whatever you want. It can be very simple. It took us, literally, I don't know, less than 15 minutes, start to finish, to pack the food that we needed. And we put it together when we were there, and whatever, you could throw a whole can of tuna fish if you want, or throw a can opener and a can of baby corn or whatever it is. And these things, can be very simple, especially when your mind is otherwise occupied. Any more on humor, or can we move on?
I just will quickly add, I have older kids and I have adult kids as well. And so some of my kids will reference, or I'll help them reference, like Rivkah said, like comics, or, comics that they've read, or that, they change the wording to certain things that allude to things. And because they're older, we have a little bit of a more sarcastic humor. And at this time, I definitely encourage it, and I think that I shared with you, how we had such fun, because my one son got out for 24 hours and sent a photo, and we were all like, ooh, shampooed your hair, what shampoo did you use, and it was a whole family, like everyone rolling with laughter, and him going like that. And another son, who somebody came to the base and gave them all haircuts, and we're like, look at that, he goes to, he gets called Formula Women, he comes back with a snazzy haircut. So it can be as simple as sarcastic, but nice sarcasm, not mean, just to lighten the mood. Maybe nobody's in the mood for watching funny things or jokes, but we can help as mothers to allude. I was talking to my son this week, and we were discussing another son's birthday, and he just suddenly, out of the blue, he was like, oh, that sounds like an Asterix. There's an old comic, Asterix and Obelix. You probably never heard of it. And he was like, that sounds like, a moment from there. And that started a whole thing, and he was joking and laughing, and it was really nice. It was really nice. But sometimes it just takes going out for us of our norm to just kind of hook a little something and then go with it. So anything to lighten the mood sometimes.
Yeah. And dancing, putting on music and doing dance will kill two birds with one stone, because you get your exercise, and it definitely lightens the mood, especially, you have, you should have inside jokes about music with your family. If you don't, you should build those today. If it's Michael Jackson moonwalking, or if it's getting rickrolled, or whatever it is, do something, start building those, because they're really fun. And as far as Gilla said, with nice sarcastic, I just think it's important to note that may be a keynote. That actually is a really important point, because when we're building relationships with people and attachment parenting, or whatever you want to call what we do, we're never going to be mean sarcastic, because we never would want to hurt our kids, or hurt our relationship, or hurt the people we love. So yeah, it's obviously it's going to be a something that we know the other person would find funny, and not something that would be embarrassing or hurtful to that person. But
I would like to just quickly add that I am the first one to laugh at myself and to make silly fun of myself, to do that. And we started something many years ago that if somebody breaks a glass in the house, we say mazel tov. So when, now during these times when it's especially tense, we might forget that that's our custom because it's just another thing to deal with, broken glass or whatever. But now we have to make the extra effort to say mazel tov and maybe to sing siman tov and mazel tov while we clean up, because it just helps to take the sting out of it. We can be sarcastic, but laugh at ourselves, takes the sting out.
Beautiful. Our tip number 4 is nature and Hashem's rhythms. So when I talked earlier about taking my kids out to the national parks, that's absolutely why I chose it. The great thing about having these little tips is that sometimes you can get, when your mind is so occupied and you hear someone giving you great advice, like we are, to go and do something, go and change the routine. You can keep the essential, things, but go and change things up a little bit. And then you go, well, what do I do? And you're suddenly scrolling through recipes for 6 hours and no one's eaten. And the situation is even worse than it was before. So the great thing about nature and Hashem's rhythms is that if I know I need to get the kids out and get myself out, my go-to is like outside. I don't have to think about what activity do I need to do or what movie should we see or what. I know I'm going in nature. That's done. The question is where. And so because I have this annual subscription to the national parks, it's really simple to just go online. They've got a map that shows where all the parks are, and I can decide where I feel like driving to or getting to somehow in the country and pick whatever park is there, or I don't know, we want to see a crusader or something or other. So I'm only going to look at crusader things, or we want to go see birds. I'm only going to look at places where there's birds. And it just makes these decisions quick, because taking too much time to make a decision can bog you down and make things feel even more overwhelming and even more difficult. So nature is always a good choice. And Gilla, I'm sure I'll actually step back so you can talk about it, but the health benefits of grounding in nature, of forest bathing, of just breathing fresh air, of being around plants and trees, about the symbiotic relationship between carbon dioxide and oxygen. So Gilla, I know you know this stuff really well.
Sure. So again, depending where you live and what you have around you. And something that I've heard from some people when I've been, giving them suggestions, they're scared to go too far from home, depending where they live. I even had someone when I suggested taking her dog for a walk, because that's my nature. That's how I start my nature of the day, is I take my dog for a nice walk in nature. And she said she lives in a building. Somebody contacted me and she said she's been walking her dog up and down the stairs. So obviously that could go under the heading of exercise and caring for others like animals. But ideally, whatever you have, if you have a balcony, a mirpesed, if you have some potted plants, now's a great time to do planting. Just get your hands in the dirt. The dirt is so healing. You've no idea. The smell, we talk about aromatherapy, and we immediately think of essential oils because that's how, the trend has become. However, the word aromatherapy means smelling the rain, the negative ions. It means smelling the soil, the dirt. And it's very therapeutic and healing for us. More than that, it's calming. And it's been shown people who garden have better microbes. It has such a good influence on the microbiome. And now during stress time, our microbiome suffers. We may not be eating the same as we did, and just the stress. So putting your hands in soil, if you have kids, let them mess, let them play with it. If you go to a park, sit with the kids on the ground, look at the sky, get your hands in the dirt, play in the sand with them, any of those things. The forest bathing that Rivkah spoke about. Forest bathing, you don't have to take your clothes off and you don't have to get wet. You just walk where there's trees. Look up at the tree. Put your back against a tree. when we put our backs against the tree, it's the same effect as if we're petting and hugging our animals or dogs. It's like earthing, grounding when we put our feet on the ground. Same thing, walk barefoot a few minutes. It can be such simple things. If there's a little nature area, if you have a backyard, if you have a downstairs, whatever you have, kick the shoes off, go outside, stand there, let your little toes squish in the dirt a little bit and just breathe with it. And, you know, accept and acknowledge that you're getting this goodness from God through nature.
Today, actually last night, we had our first rain, thank God. And what a rain it was. Oh my goodness. And then the next morning it was like, I don't even know. I mean, I guess because they grew up doing this, but it's so second nature to the children. They look out the window. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. Oh my God, it was raining. It was raining. It was raining. They open the door. They have no, you know, still in their sleeping, whatever. They run outside and just want to play in the mud. And it's so great. I mean, it's just like their first instinct is let's go get our hands in it. And then because it was after the rain, at literally 6 o'clock in the morning, we look up in the sky and there's an enormous rainbow, enormous. Wow. And so we're sitting outside, still drizzling a little. It's very cold because it's 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun's just coming up. There's an amazing rainbow and you can't do anything but just stand there outside and just look at it. The clouds are passing in and out of the rainbow. I mean, it was just like magical, literally magical. And the kids were all barefoot. And it was like, there it is, just like we're going to touch on in a moment, counting your blessings, being so grateful for every moment. There's some message that God's trying to show us with this rainbow. It's early in the morning and after the rain that we just had been dying for all this time. Out in the Negev, we haven't had any. And just say thank you and take it all in, right? And it's just, it was the kids' second nature. I just followed them out. I wasn't going to go outside at 6 o'clock in the morning with no shoes on, but I followed them out. And here we are presented with this amazing portrait in the sky. Just unbelievable.
Gosh, following a kid probably should have been one of our tips. But yeah, it sounds just like my house this morning, you know, that, well, we've also had rain and we also had a rainbow. And it's like amazing to hear one of the kids go like, a rainbow! And everyone runs outside and everyone, you know, looks at the rainbow. And yes, I know halakhically you're not supposed to gaze at a rainbow and all this. I'm aware of it. But, you know, it is miraculous. It really, really is a miraculous thing to see. And the kids this morning, you know, we went to go check on the chickens and the ground is wet and there's mud. And my littlest children, you know, again, in their pajamas, barefoot, they're just squishing their toes in the mud. And I didn't actually squish my own toes in the mud, not because I, you know, it was a bad idea. I should have done it. I should have, but I was involved in other things at the time. However, just watching them, just being there while I'm doing my, you know, meetings and things and watching them get their feet in the mud brought me so much joy. And also, you know, concern that they were going to muddy the house. So, so we made sure they had access to the water hose outside so they could rinse their feet off. But there's easy solutions. You know, you can make sure that you can get a bucket of water if you don't have a faucet outside, and they can put it on their feet and rinse them off. I see sometimes parents go, no, you can't do that because you're going to make everything a mess. And there are usually very easy and creative solutions so that your house doesn't get destroyed, that, you know, the children can still, and you can still go out and have some fun. And I think this is really highly underrated because it's so easy to go to nature. And people say, I live in a building. And I went, well, okay, but there must be an outside, like there must be a door to the building. Go outside. Just go outside. Okay, so it's a sidewalk and there's other buildings. Start looking for the nature for what Hashem created in between the sidewalk cracks. It's not far from you. I promise. It's literally everywhere. And just go, even if it's some weeds and you don't even know what they are, go and touch it, smell it, observe it. And observe it every day as the seasons change, and get to know some of the local flora and fauna in your area. And the healing feelings, the sense of calm that you have is so profound, and it's just a few steps outside your door. So if that's okay, we'll go to what Chava suggested, which is counting your blessings. Tip number 5. Anyone want to jump in?
I'll start. So, sometimes when I say, like, the word counting your blessings, people will put up a little wall, like, because they're going through so much. So I like to use different words, because for different people. And really what it is cultivating an attitude of gratitude. And it sounds counter to everything. Count your blessings, gratitude, but it helps us at the end of the day. Because if we can find one thing to be grateful for, then it starts to tip the scales a little. And it's the half empty, half full cup. To be immersed in helping others, which we're going to get to, can have the effect of helping us to count our blessings, because there always are blessings. And the blessings can be so simple as you mentioned rain, and I think Rivkah has a rain story. And the only reason I'm saying it now is because I'm sitting next to a window and it's absolutely pouring with rain. And the first thing I think of is I have to take my dog out and it's pouring rain. So, but rain is a blessing. You see the plants, the earth gets wet. It cools down the weather. I live in Florida. It's such a blessing. It was cool. So, as you start to cultivate that attitude of gratitude, first of all, you smile and it's funny. And then you change, and it's changing the consciousness, and it gets to the heart. And as we feel thankful for one thing or a person, it grows, and we feel for more. I'm so grateful that when I wake up at 2 or 3 in the morning and I see my son has seen my WhatsApp, I see the 2 little blue things. I'm so grateful, and I acknowledge that gratefulness. I'm so grateful that I have a dog to take out, because I'm out in nature and I get to smell the rain, because otherwise I likely wouldn't walk in the rain. So I'm just giving very simple, everyday examples, but I know Rivkah has a really amazing, deep story to tell us.
We'll do it later. I think that's under one of our other tips.
Okay.
But I was thinking about, people get really resistant when you talk about counting your blessings. You're absolutely right. For some reason, it's just like everything is horrible, and it isn't until, like, for example, my son couldn't see, lost his eyesight, quite suddenly. And then, of course, after the surgery, was unable to see. And part of our talking him through it is talking about, all those days where you had eyesight and you didn't even think about it, And now, as Bezrat Hashem, it comes back to him, Bezrat Hashem, every day, you can't go on the same way again. When you've faced a trauma, you have 2 ways, I'm oversimplifying, where you can get out of it. You can go and be like angry, can't believe this happened to me, this is horrible, my life's horrible, everything's bad, everything's terrible. And like, okay, so say you get your eyesight back, whatever, it doesn't matter, I'll never be able to trust in my eyes again. Like, you can be that way. Or you can be the kind of person who's like, I had it every single day, I'm so grateful looking back. And now when it comes back to me, I'm going to be so grateful every day. Just even starting with your 5 or 6 senses. Okay. Can you see today? Thank you, Hashem. What a gift. Are you able to open your eyes? Are they filled with, blood and pus and who knows what? No, you can see. Can you hear today? Thank you, Hashem. When you taste your food, can you taste the food? Does it have a taste? Sometimes people have depression and they lose their sense of taste. And that's part of their clinical diagnosis, is that the food loses its taste. Go to another sense then. Can you smell? Can you smell a flower? Can you feel the differences between the petals of a flower and a thorny flower? Are your hands feeling? I used to, when the caper bush would get me, whenever I was trying to wildcraft capers. It's a wild weed here in Israel, and it just reaches out and grabs you. And I'd be like, thank God all my nerve endings in my body are working, because that hurts a lot. That is no fun to be scratched up by a caper bush. Thank God I can feel it. Thank God my skin is going to regenerate and heal. I don't even have to think about it. Every single one of us has blessings. I've lived homeless in my life, and I absolutely counted my blessings during that time. Thank God I had a warm place, tonight to shelter from the winter or wherever it was when I was homeless. Thank God, I found this uneaten apple by the garbage can, and I have a healthy piece of fruit to eat. Things can be really, really bad, but you have to continue to cultivate that thankfulness and gratitude that for the things that you do have. And it helps you be open and receptive to the things you don't starting to come your way. Chava, do you want to?
Yeah, just touching on that. We live in the zone where all the tragedies happened, and the people that I've talked to that have all fled but come back every once in a while to water their plants and then leave again, they have gone down that spiral of, there's nothing left. Everyone we know went this way or that way, and what do we have to live for, kind of thing? What do I have to stay for? What do I need this place for? This cycle that can really take hold if you don't bring in that gratitude. If you don't look for that one single thing that will bring the light to your day. I've seen it and heard it, the stories over and over again. But what I choose to do is read the stories of these amazing heroes that have come out of this, and the selfless things that they have done for their brethren who, most of the time they didn't even know, to save lives, and the things that are coming out of this, like people who have been traumatized, people who have been injured, people who have been killed, whatever. And then people who are still in this position, they over in the Yehuda Shomron, they're still waiting for, God forbid, who knows what, right? Everyone's looking at all of our borders. And it's like, you don't even know where to put yourself because there's so much going on. So my thing is, I've made a list of people to pray for. And the list gets longer and longer and longer every day. And it's like, sometimes it just feels like, oh my God, there's just, how can you get to it all, right? But then I say, wait a minute, thank God I have people to pray for. I have what to pray for. Like, I'm still here. I can use my own power. I can use my own faith and trust and know that God is listening and he's with me and he's doing all he can to take care of these people that I'm begging him to watch over for. Like I have a reason to be here, and people are depending on me, people that I know that really need this power, and not just from me. Okay, this is not about me. This is my own whatever I can do kind of thing. So I am grateful that I am here and I can actually assist. I can give. I can do something for someone, even if it's the simplest thing as sitting down, closing my eyes, taking a few minutes, saying some names. And that's the best I can do right now, but it's with all my heart. So being grateful for just being able to do that. Thank God I have another day. Thank God he gave us the sun to come up and the moon to come up, and let's watch the seasons pass by. The littlest, silliest things that don't seem even very important to anyone anymore are so important when you really just bring back down, priorities.
Well, I think that takes us into tip number 6. We're almost done. Tip number 6, which is caring for others. And that sounds like, that's being able to pray for others is helping you maintain your center and your calm. We did cookies. I've mentioned it before, or giving chizuk. So the cookie story is, everyone was feeling really down early on in the war, and we saw soldiers came to our yishuv and people started guarding, and, we decided we're going to make them cookies and we're going to bring them a little treat. And the day we did it was, again, the kids, another example of them saying, this was the best day ever. But it was the best day ever. Like, we went from like sad, scared, sirens, all the emotions, all the everything, to going out, making the cookies, wrapping them up, giving them to people. And then the people love cookies. That like we never had a person like, ew, I hate that, like there was no negative reaction to cookies. It's a surefire win. People are going to smile at you if you give them cookies, and that smiling is just, it comes right back to you. You made someone smile, and then they're smiling, and then you feel like smiling, and then of course if you're smiling you can't feel sad because you've that muscle memory. Smiling is happy and joyful, and so you actually change the internal attitude that you have. You change the chemistry of what's going on inside your body just by changing the direction of the ends of your mouth. So doing that, I had a neighbor who sent me a message saying she was thinking of leaving the country. She was so afraid, again, early on in the war. And how many of us heard it? I mean, I heard it from other people. I couldn't drop everything and do whatever. But for this one time, this one person, I said, I have some extra time this evening. I'm going to drop by her house and I'm just going to, check in with her and see how she's doing. And I ended up spending a really long time and giving her a lot of chizuk, which I was in the position to give at that time. I don't always have chizuk to give. I'm not always in the position where I'm like overflowing with extra. It just so happened that I did have it in that moment, and I decided I better pass it forward so that we can keep everyone playing it forward and, make this world like a better place. I can actually use this opportunity I have where I'm not feeling depleted right now to pay it forward. So caring for others is big. Chava, I know you're caring for the animals and other people's animals, which is also huge.
Yeah. When people fled, they fled, like picked up their children, put them in a car and left. And in panic mode, didn't even bother to, I understand. So their animals were all left behind, uncared for, unfed. And it took a while to notice that this is happening because you know, you just figure if they're going to leave, they're also going to take care of their animals. But there were dogs eventually running around killing everyone else's animals because they were hungry, which is also understandable, the poor things. So then we noticed that there were a lot of animals left behind and we better do something about it. And so we've taken on dogs, cats, goats, chickens. Yeah. So these are the things that were left behind. And whatever it, you know, it's so gratifying to know that these animals are now, at least someone cared for them. We've also adopted a few because once they were here, they never wanted to leave. Animals are also traumatized by loud booms and sirens, and they were left alone. If you can even imagine, they came literally trembling from head to toe, all four legs, and couldn't be calmed. It took a long time. So that is very, very gratifying. It's important. And we didn't have any humans to care for except for ourselves because everyone was gone. But yeah, so that continues up until today. And thank God everyone, with all of the donations, oh my gosh, people have gone above and beyond. I've never seen anything like this. We are receiving not only fruits and vegetables and pastas and canned goods and whatever, but bags of dog food and bags of cat food and bags of chicken, like, 25-kilo bags. Like, people heard that animals had been abandoned and they did everything they could to help. And until today, we're still getting so much so that we can take care of these things without it coming out of our pocket. Thank God. Amazing, just amazing.
Well, maybe we can move on to the last point since we're running low on time. Our last tip is mindfulness. Observe what is and not what is not. And I talked about this, I think, last month. We talked about, I shared the dead chicken story, which there were actually a lot of people who wrote to me saying how helpful that was. And it really is a profound story. If you haven't heard it, you can listen to our last seminar with little Aryeh. But this time I do have a story about noises in the night. So up here in the north, again, our family's kind of in a, I would say, very unusual situation with my son going through this surgery outside of the country, and the family dynamic has changed and we've been split up from each other, and we have this war ongoing and other issues that come up. And one night, during all of this, the kids, it's already very unsettling. There's a lot of changes just because of those aforementioned things. And one night there were planes and drones, and it was just all night long, the sounds that we Israelis have in the night now. And my little ones woke up, and of course they were shivering and afraid, and they all come to my bed, and everyone gets in my bed. And I'm, letting them know in a very nonchalant way. One of my girls asked me, are they our drones or the bad guys? And, I don't have any control over drones. I don't know who they belong to, but I do have control over the Shalom Bayit in my own home. And I do have control over how I relate to my children. And, for older children, obviously I would share more, but for younger children, of course, there are drones. We don't hear any booms, do we? We don't hear any sirens. So they've got to be ours. And go back to sleep. Come, I'm cuddling all my little ones. Everything's fine. I'm going to take care of you. We know exactly what to do. If a siren happens, we know where to go. And there's no sirens, and we can just go right back to sleep and everything's fine. But of course, I don't go back to sleep because I'm listening, because I need to protect my kids. And that's a reality for a lot of us. And I started hearing, I was hearing constant drones, planes, and I wasn't hearing sirens. But what I did notice was that in between the drones, I was hearing like the pitter patter of rain drops. And it started to get like a little harder, and then it would ease up a bit, but it was very soft. And if you didn't absolutely tune into it, you wouldn't have even known it was there because there was so much noise that night and so many things happening. So I remember trying to focus on those drops, on the rain between all of the other sounds. And pretty soon my whole reality flipped. Instead of it's only drones and whatever, and maybe I hear a pitter patter, it suddenly was I could only hear the rain. And there were drones in the background happening. But for me, everything really shifted, that it was only the rain, and the rain was very relaxing, and I could start to relax and go back to sleep and think about again the gratitude, that mindfulness of what's really happening in the here and now. Wow, it's raining. This is great because I don't have to water my lemon tree tomorrow, which I was so concerned about because it's dying. And the kids and I talked about it and all these things. And I woke up with holding that thought in my head, so that the first thing the kids had after a traumatic night was not reliving the sounds and being stuck in what was not. But I said, isn't it amazing, you guys? We don't have to take buckets out to the tree anymore, or not today, because it rained all night long. That rain was so relaxing. And all of a sudden, the narrative has changed for both me and the children in my house. Suddenly, the focus has shifted to what could have been a very scary, horrific, as crazy and as bad as I want it to be. But I didn't want it to be there at all. And so I looked for something else, and I wasn't lying. I wasn't denying reality. The reality is, I know the drones were there. I heard them. But the reality was there was also rain, and that rain was good, and that rain was calming, and that rain was great for the children and for me to be able to focus on. So maybe Chava and Gilla have some stories they'd like to add to that before we wrap up.
Go ahead, Gilla. I just, these families that have fled our area, they come back maybe once a week, once every 2 weeks, just to water their plants or something. And so I have a chance to talk to them. And one of the women who I'm watching her goats for her, she is, just the typical panic-stricken, traumatized, everything from this experience. And although it happened for everyone, and for us included, because I have been so mindful of keeping things, generally the routine, and making it calm and enjoyable as much as I possibly can with stories and music and everything that we've talked about here. She can't go there at all. And she is such, the same story that I've seen over and over. I'm just using her as an example, but I've heard from all the neighbors. Every time they come back, this is what I'm hearing. The children are out of sorts. They can't finish whole sentences. They're crying themselves to sleep. And this is after they fled. Okay, so this is in another spot, in a grandma's house, in a new environment. It's cramped because now there's 2 families living there. They're in the center of the country, which is right next to another Arab village that they are also having to keep an eye on because you don't know. So it's more stress. The parents are going back and forth to the moshav because they want to water the plants and see that everything's, being upheld as much as possible. And so they are taking some children and leaving some there, and the stress is unbelievable, and she doesn't know what she said. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't know what to do. The kids that are at the new place don't want the parents to leave, and the parents need to leave. And so the child is blocking the door with his own body. Please don't leave. If you're going to die, I want to die with you. I mean, these are the sentences that are coming out of little 9-year-olds' mouths. They're so traumatized. And the parents are they're up here rather than grounded with their children, connecting with their kids, looking them in the eye, saying, what are you feeling? I'm here for you. Hug them. Instead, they're running back and forth all over the country and leaving half there and leaving. And they're looking at my kids who are just taking care of their animals and playing in the dirt and playing with the new kittens that were just born and milking the goat that needs to be, and just doing their thing. And they're looking at them like, they don't seem traumatized. Why are your children so calm? Well, I have made a serious effort to keep us here, to keep everything going, to involve the kids, to be with them, to connect with them. And I'm not running all over the place looking for where to put myself. And I'm not blaming anyone. I understand panic and I understand trauma. But there is something that you need to come down from up here where you're just frazzled. That's the only word I can come up with when I'm talking to these people. They cannot finish a sentence. One of them even told me after this tragedy happened, she was trying to read an article that someone had showed her, and she literally, not that she couldn't understand what she was reading, her brain had cut off the ability to read letters. Something snapped, and it took her days and days for it to come back to be able to read the letters. I mean, that's how bad it is. The soul, where do you even put the words, right? And now, instead of trying to bring it all back down and know that you are the rock for these kids, try very hard. Instead, they're just running all over the place, not feeling safe where they are and not feeling settled or grounded in any place. And you've got to choose. And so when she looks at me and she said, I'm so thank you for bringing all this stability to our conversation, because she sees that I'm just talking. I'm not, like she is, and her, it's not just her, it's many people. When they talk, their arms are all over the place. Their eyes are shifting. It's like we're saying, cultivating it. It's major work, but you have to recognize that this is happening and try and help the children to also bring it back down, because they're looking to us for the answers. We don't have the answers, but we do have the emotional ability to just take a breath and give them a hug. So this running back and forth thing, I don't know where it's going to end. These children are so traumatized on top of traumatized on top of traumatized. And I feel so bad for them, but I'm praying and I'm talking to these people, doing whatever I can. But again, it's out of my hands. I have to realize that too.
I don't think we could end on a better note than that. As a recap, the 7 points are: exercise, keep routine, but shake it up a little, have a little fun with it. Humor, nature and Hashem's rhythms, observing what Hashem created. Counting your blessings, caring for others, and mindfulness. So thank you very much. We'll stop recording and we'll open it up to Q&A. Thank you, Lo Aryeh.
So, it's bad. We want to thank our Madam Co-Chairs, Rivkah, Chava, and Gilla, for another illuminating program, especially walking through the bullets for all our viewers and listeners. And we will have, after we finish the recorded section, we'll have ample time for discussion with those who are joining us from places far and near. And we will see each other, hopefully, a month from now. That will be during Hanukkah. What I want to say when we conclude. Yes. It seems to be a cosmic law that, looking historically, what one brings on the Jews will eventually come back on you, whoever you may be. What comes on the Jews in the 30s will come back on you in the 40s, whoever you are. Whether you are direct participants or bystanders who don't care or say, well, they're getting what they deserve, it seems to be pretty consistent. The Jew is the canary in the cave, everywhere. That's one thing. Now, I remember it was we've been in the land of Israel since April 1st, April Fool's Day, 1992. Shortly after we arrived, I wasted some time going to an interfaith monologue conference, very well funded, very good lunches and dinners at what was then the Hilton Hotel. Now it's something else near the bus station. And I was sitting next to a dean, an Anglican dean of a big cathedral in England. And he spoke in this beautiful upper-class U accent. And he said, you know, these problems you're having, doesn't love mean learning to forgive? So you should forgive the people who are blowing up your buses and your cafes, and you could sit down and dialogue with them. So I said to him, and listen, I wish I would have recorded this, had a video. I said, you know, you're absolutely right. This was the 1990s. There was still a lot of the IRA blowing up stuff in Belfast and Northern Ireland and throughout England. I said, you're absolutely right. You English and the Protestants in Northern Ireland should, love means learning to forgive the IRA for blowing up England and Belfast and Northern Ireland. Now, the same man, all of a sudden, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the bullshit flew right out the window. He was an adherent of that a form of Christianity which teaches that Jews should turn the other cheek. We teach that Jews should turn the other. The same man, 1 minute later, said, all of a sudden, his face clouded with anger. And he said, my son is in the British Army. And we know who those people are and what they've done. And we should take the IRA and their families, line them up and machine gun them. So what happened to the person who in the previous statement gave me this pompous, condescending Christian crap and bullshit about doesn't love mean learning how to forgive, when I turned it around and said to him, yes, you should forgive the Irish Catholic IRA members who are blowing up England and Belfast? Was it cognitive dissonance? Was it Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Was it multiple personality disorder? Was it schizophrenia? Whatever it was, what he wanted to apply to Jews in Israel, the moment it came back, and this was within a space of a 2-minute conversation, I was so astonished, I didn't know what to say. Woe unto you, scribes, Pharisees, and hypocrites. I just was so, it sometimes when I hear things that's astonishing, it takes me time to process run it through the Vulcan computer, Mr. Spock, and say, yeah, he said that. I don't even know if hypocrisy is the right term. It's like living in multiple parallel universes. I've heard people say that the Gentile world has a double standard viewing Jews in Israel. And I say to them, they don't have standards, double or otherwise. They have interests. It's a totally different way of thinking. It's not like they have double standards. They don't have any standards. And they play this little game, the Christian cat with the Jewish mouse. I mean, it's very philosophical. So I see a lot of this going on now. I have an ex-friend, I don't want to name him, who lives on a beautiful island off the coast of Scotland and has multiple theological degrees. And I said to him when we were still talking a few weeks ago, I said, what would you say to my granddaughters where the 4-year-old says to her grandpa, it's not 1943 in the Warsaw Ghetto, it's 2023 in the land of Israel. My 4-year-old says to me, Grandpa, why do they want to kill us? She shouldn't be asking that question. That shouldn't be her reality. And the 2-year-old, yes, we'll get to that. The 2-year-old, but I want to conclude this relates to what you said in therapies. When the rockets were coming in and the Iron Dome was shooting them down, heard the boom and the earth was shaking, trembled and said, afraid, afraid. So I said to Mr. Bullshit Artist, Right Reverend, what would you say to them? He couldn't answer the question. He said, you're not interested in peace. Is this, I have to ask myself and ask you ladies, is this insanity? Is this evil? Is it double standards? It is, well, the Christ killing kikes in June, deicide murder means you're getting what you deserve. Is the mask coming off? I don't know. All I know, as I said, you're telling me I'm not interested in peace when you're sitting on your big fat ass in your beautiful island looking out the window. Maybe it should come on you. So like the dean from the cathedral, all the bullshit will go flying out the window in Gilla, because that is what's coming. Looking historically and prophetically, it won't be long before what's coming here. Well, it already happened in Ukraine with 500,000 dead Ukrainian soldiers and 40,000 dead Russians and civilian sites being bombed for a year and a half. Nobody cared about that. It won't be long before what you've just described with children and their parents will soon engulf the whole world. Now, we talk about that in a few months and see whether that happened or not. But looking historically and looking prophetically, that is usually, and then watch with the dean from the Anglican Cathedral and with the Right Reverend from the island, all the bullshit goes flying out the window, and all of a sudden we'll be dropping A-bomb on them. What happened? What happened was you were an adherent of the religion which teaches, that form of Christianity which teaches Jews should turn the other cheek. You're being tested now. Most of you are failing and will soon come on you, and you will deserve it. I just feel sorry for the women and the children and the innocent non-combatants who will suffer because of your obstinacy and rebellion against God. Israel will survive. Israel is Noah's Ark in the coming flood, the God of Israel spiritually, the land of Israel physically. That's my sermon at the end. I'm very grateful what the lady said because I have to deal with this myself. What do you say to a 4-year-old who says, why do they want to kill us? And a 2-year-old who trembles, afraid. That's why, my last remark, in Isaiah, God says, I have created Hamashchit lechabel. I have created the destroyer to destroy. Those people who did this on October 7th and those who cheered them and smirked around the world, you have unleashed yourselves, demons from hell, rising out of the depths of the earth, demons of the ancient world. And they are coming for you. He created the destroyer to destroy, and you have now unleashed them on yourselves. You think that's not real? You'll see soon enough. Hamashchit lekabel, it's in Isaiah. I, God, says, I have created the mashchit. I created it. Hamashchit lekabel. So, here it comes. All right, we see you in a month at Hanukkah time. Shalom from Jerusalem, from the northern Negev, the lower Galilee, and from Florida. And we will now open this up. We'll stop recording and open this up for general discussion. And if any pious Christians are, oh, he's interested in revenge. No, I'm interested in something that's beyond your comprehensions called justice, and you're about to get it. Okay, let's stop.